You're listening to the Open Books Podcast.
Your next chapter starts now.
Is it love, 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 love that I'm feeling? Is it love, 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 love that I'm feeling? Is she the one?
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Open Books Podcast. Holy shit. Do we have a wonderful show lined up for you today? We are talking about The Last One by Will Dean, and I have been going stir crazy not yapping about this book with you, Colby. But before then, how are you?
I'm great, and I feel the same way. This was one that we absolutely had to do ASAP because it was too good to not break down, or it was too good to forget. Like I didn't want to lose sight of the book and like what happened in the novel because we know that happens to us.
Oh yeah, we quickly forget and we move on.
Yeah.
But this is one that I cannot get out of my head.
For sure, and I think it's going to be one that people who haven't read the book but they're just here for the vibes are going to enjoy listening to.
If you're here for the vibes and you're here for a plot,
we got one for you.
You're going to, I think after, even if you don't read and you do just listen to the summaries and the discussion, I do think you'll pick this book up and read it for yourself because it's that good.
Mm-hmm. I think so too. I was talking to some of our friends at the baby shower that we were just at for Kelly, and they said that like it caught their attention, the synopsis that we gave, and they were all sold by the time I kind of like explained the book because it really is such an interesting topic, like being lost at sea on a cruise ship by yourself.
And it's just, you don't read about that a lot. I think sometimes, well, we definitely are like in our genre.
Yes.
Psychological thriller girls, domestic thrillers. Like we like what we like. But this is something we've never read before. But I have never read anything like this. Even like a survival type of book with the setting on a cruise ship and just all the different twists and turns
and then
that
what
it
it
takes.
turned into. We've never had anything like that either.
Never.
Which makes it really fun because I think through this journey of the podcast, we've realized the type of books that we like, the type of books that we don't like, and the ones that put us in a reading slump.
Very true.
And we have to like kind of find something in this like very specific circle. So should we just like get into it? Because I'm really excited.
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, so this book is The Last One by Will Dean. So I actually did write this summary completely by myself. I didn't like use any summaries on the internet to help because is this book new? Do we know? Let's look it up when it was published. I could do it real quick.
Okay. Yeah.
Because it felt like there wasn't a lot of summaries out there. And I was like, you know what? This one just like it deserves its own moment. Like I just want to really break it down. We found it from a girl's TikTok. Like I remember I sent it to you and she was talking about the premise of it. We're like, should we read this one? So hopefully this brings a little awareness to this book because it really is really good.
Yeah, I would have sworn more people would have been talking about it, like on Book Talk or Bookstagram.
Me too. Okay, so we can just get into the summary then.
Let's do it.
So The Last One by Will Dean is a tense psychological thriller centered around Kaz. Okay, I have a question for you because I listened to the audiobook. So was Kaz with a K or a C? When you read it.
Oh, Kaz was with a C.
With a C. Okay, I don't know why, but I pictured it with a K. So
Because
Kaz
her real
with a
name
C.
was
Caroline.
Caroline.
Okay, got it. So, it's centered around Kaz, a woman who embarks on a luxurious remote cruise with her husband, Pete. The couple seems to have everything, wealth, success, and a bright future ahead of them. However, as Kaz wakes up one morning, she finds herself completely alone on the boat with Pete and all the other passengers mysteriously missing. So that was like a synopsis from the internet, and then this is where my summary comes in. So the setting of the book is a fancy cruise ship called the RMS Atlantica that is sailing to New York City. Kaz, our main character, is an older woman, and it seems like she was somewhere between 50 and 60. Did they say her age? I was surprised by how old she was.
I feel like at some point they did hint at her age, but I'm not sure if we had like a 52.
I think so too. I think it was in that realm between 50 and 60. So Kaz is in a fairly new relationship with her boyfriend, Pete. She seems to be happy with him, and this cruise was exciting to her as the rest of her life seemed pretty lackluster. She owns a cafe, which she loves, and she's very close to her sister and mother. Her mother has some form of dementia and is slowly losing grasp of reality, and Kaz also struggles with hurtful memories of her father in her past who was addicted to gambling. Her father ruined her family, though she always did love him. But he gambled all their money away and would do deceitful things to feed his gambling addiction. So she definitely struggles with this like grappling of like her past throughout the whole story. During her teenage years, Kaz got pregnant and decided to give her baby up for adoption, another memory from the past that continues to haunt her present. So that's what I was going to say. That kind of gave her age away in the book because she mentioned that her daughter now might have been like 30.
Yes.
Okay, so on the cruise, the first night, Kaz enjoys herself with Pete, but upon waking, she finds herself totally alone. She searches everywhere for not only Pete, but anyone, but she finds nothing. Though she tries not to panic, it becomes impossible. After what seems like hours of searching the large cruise ship for any signs of life, she finally finds 3 people who become key characters in the story. We have Franny, a young girl in her early 20s who seems sweet, a bit naive, and is super upset because she came on the cruise with her parents and she's really worried about where they might be now. Next, we have Daniel, a middle-aged man who struggles with his own guilt about not being there for his 4-year-old daughter the way he wishes he was. Daniel is also super sweet, and he seems to do his best to keep others in the group calm. Finally, we have Smith. He's an older man who's very set in his ways. He has a military background, and he's very no-nonsense. He has no problems speaking his mind, even if his thoughts are sometimes pushy or rude. Together, these 4 people are lost and try to decipher what has happened on this ship. They all have had the same experience. They went to bed the night prior and woke up to nobody around. They start to form plans for survival and go search the cruise ship for any supplies that they might need, though at first they aren't super worried because they're on this huge cruise ship with plenty of food and water and shelter. But quickly, they find out things are not as they seem. All the food in the ship's kitchen areas are locked. The ship is on autopilot, but then all the power and electricity goes off, so they have no service, no power, or no running water. They break up to try to find as much food as they can and scavenge food from their rooms, but all they can really come up with is some small snacks that won't hold them over long. Of course, tensions start to rise in the group as these 4 strangers try working together in a really scary situation and present theories about where the rest of the passengers might have went. They think maybe pirates raided the ship, or maybe there was some type of emergency and everyone had to get rushed off board and they just happened to sleep through it, though none of those theories come without huge gaping holes. Over the next few days, the passengers build relationships. They learn more about each other and bond over their shared fear, past traumas, guilt, regrets, and hopes for the future. Franny and Kaz seem to be the most close as the 2 girls of the group, and Kaz seems to kind of have a motherly authority over Franny, and Daniel always being the voice of reason. Smith always seems to be a little angry, especially at their current situation, and he sometimes seems like a difficult person to work with. But in the end, they do kind of form their own little family. However, they never really know if they could fully trust one another because they are, in fact, strangers. So, days pass and the 4 passengers become starving and weak when they get their first hint of what is happening. A large speaker comes over and calls to them, go to a certain area of the ship where they find a large TV and a single set of lips speaking to them. The lips tell them that they are passengers on the very first RMS Atlantica, which is the subject of a new reality TV series. There are hidden cameras everywhere on the ship, and they have been watched and streamed live to the world this whole time. The 4 passengers are in shock as they find out that they are actually victims of a survival reality TV show, and they didn't even know. They still don't know where all the other passengers are and if they were in on this show. Lips tells the passenger that they will each have a challenge to pass, and whoever wins the challenge will win millions of dollars. They can choose to leave the ship now or nominate another passenger to complete their challenge if they wish, but then that would eliminate them from the show and they wouldn't win the prize money. Lips tells the 4 passengers that they are permitted to only ask 1 question a night when they meet up to find out more about their challenges. They find out later that the challenge are air, mind, body, and water. The passengers have to choose who's going to compete which challenge. They don't get much more answers from Lips before the first challenge happens. Smith gets the mind challenge where he must solve a puzzle or a riddle in the ship's library, which he completes in just the nick of time. This wins the passengers a small bit of food. Next, Daniel has the challenge of body where he is tasked to complete a really demanding physical activity, which ultimately kills him. And Kaz has a water challenge where she has to jump into the ocean's dangerous conditions, and she also barely makes it, but she lives and gets back on board with the help of the passengers. Finally, Franny has the air challenge where she has to climb really high heights with no safety, but she ends up nominating Kaz to do the challenge for her. Kaz objects to this, horrified that Franny would do this to her, but in the end she has no choice but to do the challenge. Kaz barely survives another challenge once again, gaining more trauma along the way. But let's go back to Daniel's death because this really was a turning point in the book. So Daniel's death really shook up Kaz, Franny, and Smith. They beg the cameras and Lips to let them off the ship. They cry and scream that this has gone too far and nobody should have died. But their requests are always ignored. They are forced to survive off of hardly any food, any answers. They end up eating dog food. They bear the harsh weather conditions and are just simply terrified that this show that they're on clearly doesn't care if they live or die as long as they get views. Suddenly, though, Lips shows up in person, and the last 3 passengers are completely shocked. So Lips tells them her name is Michelle, and she's actually been on the ship with them the whole time in her own little bunker, safe. She ended up getting this hosting gig because it was great money, but after Daniel died, she realized that the reality show was a lot darker than what she signed up for. She tells the passengers that the first pilot episode of the show was free on YouTube, and after that, people had to pay a subscription to stream the other episodes. She tells them that this is actually on the dark web where anything goes. On the dark web, people can be murdered on live TV, and it's basically lawless. This scares the passengers even more as they realize the gravity of their situation. People all over the world are paying money to see them struggle, to even see them die. Michelle/Lips says that she lost access to the live stream when Daniel died, and she no longer has any idea of what's going on. She's in the dark just as much as they are, but it seems like the other passengers are a little skeptical of her as well. Shortly after that, a helicopter comes to rescue Lips/Michelle, who then leaves the other passengers on board alone once again. Franny ends up jumping off the ship, committing suicide, and then Kaz and Smith are left with a horrible grief and a horrible, terrifying fear for their own lives. They decide to boycott the show and simply not participate going forward. Their plan is to stay in the room and do nothing, assuming that eventually this has to end one way or another. But they end up finding a key that Lips/Michelle has left for them. This key is to the ballroom. So Kaz and Smith decide to see what's in the room. To their horror, they approach the worst foul smell they have ever come across. Then they see the room is full of bodies on top of bodies, hundreds of dead bodies in a pile. They run out in horror, realizing that they have no choice but to jump off the ship. It's clear that the other option of them staying on board is more of a death sentence, and jumping is worth the risk. They believe that those bodies that they saw were all of the passengers that were on the ship with them in the very beginning of their trip. Kaz has to convince Smith of jumping off the ship because he's scared. However, in the end, he decides that he trusts Kaz and it's the right choice. But upon jumping, Kaz loses sight of Smith. She's left floating alone in the black, vast Atlantic Ocean. She is the last one. She's on the brink of death from starvation on top of that. However, suddenly a phone rings in the bag that she packed for herself when she decided to jump off the ship. She answers the phone and she hears Michelle, a.k.a. Lips, who congratulates her on winning the show. She is then picked up by a rescue boat who brings her back on board the ship, even though she begs not to go. On board, she's met with a huge camera crew, Franny, Daniel, and Smith. She realizes that Daniel and Franny never actually died. They were actually professional actors. Everything was a facade set up for the reality show. The only 2 people who were real citizens were the clueless Smith and Kaz, the last 2 people left. Kaz is distraught. She feels like this is the worst betrayal of her life. She refuses to give any interviews to the camera, and then she's finally reunited with Pete, her boyfriend. Pete tells her that they evacuated the ship and he tried to go back for her, but he wasn't allowed. He was told by the production team that Kaz actually agreed to be on the show. He claims that he did everything he could to try to get her off, but nothing worked. This is where the story comes to an end. Kaz obviously has trouble trusting Pete or really anyone, but she decides to go back home to her family with Pete. She feels like she needs to deal with this trauma in the best way that she can and just move on. She doesn't want to give the media any more attention by giving any interview. She just wants to go back to her normal life. So just as she's on her way back home, she boards an airplane, goes to the bathroom, and when she gets out, there's nobody on the plane. The end.
The freaking end.
Okay, that was a long summary, y'all. Probably the longest that I've done in a while, but I felt like this one deserved it.
That one was necessary.
Yeah.
Because without that summary, there's no way you could have skipped.
Yeah, exactly.
It was all so crucial too.
And there were 3 plot twists that had to be introduced in that way to really understand this entire book.
All right, so let's jump into our DBQs because we've got some good ones lined up.
Okay, good.
The book immediately begins with action. By chapter 2, Kaz realizes that she is alone. What were your first instincts as to what was happening?
Oh my gosh, I'm trying to think back to when I first started reading this book because it didn't go anywhere in the direction that I thought it was going to go.
No, I had to go back and try to read our text.
When she first woke up alone, I thought that everyone on the ship was in on it. Or I was like, there's no way that this many people, because they said it was hundreds of people on the ship. So my instant thought was there's no way that hundreds of people if there was an emergency, because that was a theory that they came back to a lot in the book. Like maybe there was some type of emergency and
Right.
everyone had to get off. Well, they would just like not leave people. Like Daniel was with her. Franny's parents were with her. They wouldn't be like, oh, let's just leave our daughter sleeping in bed.
Right.
So I thought that like they were in on it for some reason. I also had this theory throughout the whole book that it was going to come out that Franny had something to do with Kaz in some way. Maybe she was Kaz's daughter.
Like a connection.
Yeah, or like, yeah, and like it was planned for her to reunite with her daughter or something like that. I even thought like something crazy was going to come out about Franny and Pete. Franny gives Kaz her phone as a flashlight. I thought Kaz was like going to go through her phone and see messages from Pete. That would have been a cool twist.
That would have been a cool twist.
And
that didn't even cross my mind.
Yes, and I thought maybe there's going to be some type of like exposure here. Like it was going to expose Pete to Kaz or something like that.
Could you imagine trying to survive and then you come to find out your man's
fucking the girl that you're
fucking
with?
the young girl? Oh my
Can you imagine?
No.
And you have to like, be in cahoots with the girl and you want to kill her.
And you're already kind of like this motherly figure to her.
Yeah,
like
and you
bombing her up.
Ultimate betrayal. So I thought it was going to be something to do with they were in on it. I didn't know the route it was going to take. I thought the route they did take was really fucking interesting though.
Yeah, I was so wrong.
Well, so what did you think?
Well, I mean, kind of just like the most basic prediction at first. I just thought she got left behind and that it was going to be her trying to survive.
Okay.
And
yeah.
get to land.
Yeah.
Obviously, not anywhere close to what actually happened in the book, but yeah, I was so off.
I had those thoughts too, that it was just going to be a survival. I didn't think it was going to be as intricate as a reality show. And
On the dark web?
On the dark web. Like, that was so Black Mirror to me.
The dark web was wild.
The dark web was wild. I'm sure we'll get to all the plot twists. But, yeah, I was completely wrong. But it just makes me remember how I felt during reading it, and I had to know. I was like, where the fuck did the passengers go?
Yeah, I had that. I was telling you. I was texting you. I was like, I just feel so claustrophobic. I was only on like chapter 5. And I was like, I feel so claustrophobic reading this book right now. And then I kept reading and was like, oh.
What is that?
crazy.
The Bermuda Triangle. It was giving me those vibes at first too. I'm like, did they pass into some type of other dimension, like maybe a Bermuda Triangle type of thing, and then everyone disappears and they're stuck?
That's such a good point because I feel like that whole like alternate reality, another dimension is such a trope right now.
It is.
In thrillers and I'm sure any type of genre, like, but it's such a thing right now.
It is.
That didn't even cross my mind either.
Yep, I thought maybe they all got zapped into somewhere else, and then it's like that plane. What's that movie with that TV show that was popular a couple years ago, where they're on the plane, a group of people are on an airplane, and then they end up not coming back for like 5 years.
Lost?
No, not Lost, but kind of similar. Manifest.
Oh, Manifest. Yeah, you're right.
I never did watch it. I started a couple episodes.
2 episodes maybe?
Yeah. It was like a little like theater to me.
Yeah.
But same kind of concept. Like they were on this airplane, never came back. So like where the fuck did they go?
Right.
If anyone watched that show, can you spoil it for me? Tell me where
just tell
did
us
they go?
what happened. So how did you feel about the cruise ship as an isolated setting?
I loved it.
I was obsessed.
I was obsessed with it too. I also think the author did a great job of explaining the cruise ship. I felt like I knew what it looked like. The different decks, the different chairs. I thought it was so interesting.
Every time, like, they would do, as the book, progressed, and the music would play, how the piano would randomly play, I'm like, this is giving Titanic. So then there was a point, not initially, but there was a point to where I was like, is this inspired? Like, is there going to be a Titanic twist?
A Titanic moment.
I thought it was going to sink, is where I'm going with that. Like, I thought,
yeah, that thought never crossed my mind, but I'm surprised it didn't, especially with the music playing and
but
stuff.
that's kind of how I pictured it. Very Titanic-esque.
Me too, and that is definitely how the author described it. It was very, like, grand, very open.
Yeah.
Luxury, and they called it that, a luxury liner.
Yeah.
Like the RMS Atlantica.
Atlantica.
Yeah, and I just thought the cruise ship setting was so cool. I know I mentioned this in the last episode, but I do have like a fascination with cruise ships. I think they're just wild. They're literally like communities on
Just
the
like
water.
It's like a building on the water.
How? I don't get it. How does the electricity work? There's so many rooms. There's so many like parts, like moving parts to a cruise ship that it's crazy to me how it all works. The dinner of it all, how there's that many people that just get dinner at the same time. It all works out. It's like a well-oiled machine. It's so crazy. the dance floors, the clubs, the casinos.
Kind of creepy though when you think about it.
It's creepy. It's like something that doesn't make sense to me. It feels like something that shouldn't be a thing.
Yeah. It shouldn't.
No.
Cruise ship should not be a...
It shouldn't work that well.
So did you feel like the isolated cruise ship setting contributed to the sense of danger? And did that prepare you for the twists?
100% to the sense of danger. Like, I'm surprised I wasn't thinking about it sinking. Like, that makes a lot of sense. It was freaking me out a lot that there was no one driving the cruise ship. Like, who driving this bus? Like,
I know.
But I guess, like, yeah, things can go on autopilot. But still, like, emergencies, like, what if something happens? There's no one there who knows how to, like, steer a ship. And I'm pretty sure everything was locked anyway. That gave me the scariest feeling of doom and, like, dread. Yeah, I was, like, very, very terrified.
No, absolutely. Like, the doors being locked, the fact that they knew that there was food, but they couldn't get to the food.
Oh, my God.
It definitely added to the twist, but I really don't think anything could have prepared me for the actual twist that came with this book.
Yeah, the first twist of the reality show.
And if you guessed any of the twists, please let us know, because maybe I'm an idiot.
I think...
Maybe I didn't pick up on the foreshadowing.
Maybe, but I don't think so, because a couple people that I've talked to, like Carly, our friend Carly, was texting me throughout it. She's like, where's the people? Like, what's going on? I need to know. She couldn't figure it out. And then she was like, bitch, did you get to the twist? You were like that too. She's like, did you get to the twist? And there was like 3 twists. It just kept twisting.
My mom's doing the audiobook right now.
Okay.
This is just a side note, but she said that Smith is like a Southern.
He is. He's the worst.
Colby.
Her accent that, like, she naturally has, like, her native accent. That's what I was looking for. Her native accent is, like, Irish.
Okay.
So think of an Irish person trying to do not only an American accent, but a country one. It was really bad.
My mom said his character's accent is rough.
It's rough. And it might have honestly made me dislike him more. Did you dislike him while reading?
I hated him.
Okay. I hated him as well.
And I read the book, and I was telling Colby, like, I cannot stand this man.
Yeah, I felt the same way, and then so the audiobook definitely heightened that feeling.
Well, this is a perfect segue into the next question, talking about our main characters. So, like you said, we have Kaz, Daniel, Francine, and Smith. Who was your favorite character and your least favorite character?
Smith was definitely my least favorite. I'll just wrap him up in a bow because...
I'm just going to jump on that and just say, like, yeah, I absolutely hated him.
Yeah, he's the type of person that everything you say, they have something to say back.
Oh, my gosh. He was absolutely, like, the insufferable old guy that, like you said, always has something to say, has to give his 2 cents into every conversation.
Thinks
like,
he's right about everything. It's like, shut the fuck... And everyone was way nice to him, by the way. Like, they were way too nice to him, by the way. Like, they didn't, like, clock him. I would be like, can you shut the fuck up? Go somewhere else then, Smith.
That's so true. Well, maybe it had to do because frickin' Francine and Daniel were actors.
That pissed me off, actually.
I hated that part. I felt betrayed as a reader.
Fuck you. Me too.
So I can't even imagine how the characters felt.
How Kaz felt. So, favorite character? Honestly, for a while, it was Franny. I thought she was, like, sweet. I kind of found her a little annoying. But also, I kept remembering that she was 23.
Yeah,
and, like, she was young, you know? And so I found her a little... I found her endearing. Like, and then she loved her parents so much. She really wanted to get back to her parents. I was, like, devastated when she jumped off the ship. I thought she really killed herself. It wasn't even real. And, like, Kaz was so upset. Imagine that for Kaz, like, who kind of fell in love with Franny. She, like, felt this protective energy of her. I almost feel like it healed Kaz in a way to have Franny because, like we had said, she gave up her daughter for adoption, and then she's kind of, like, taking care of this girl who would be very close in age to her daughter. Then she freaking jumps off a ship, kills herself in front of you. The trauma and the, like, immense guilt that Kaz must have felt, and then it wasn't even real.
Kaz is fucked up for the rest of her life.
Literally.
Not just from, like, her real, raw childhood shit she went through.
Yeah.
Because of this show.
Yes.
Like, she's never going to be the same.
No, she's like, I don't care about the millions of dollars. And what's crazy is, are we going to talk about Kaz's past at all in the questions?
Yes.
Okay, so I'll hold it. So I guess I'll change my fave character. Like, after I knew Franny was a phony, Franny was fraudulent. Fraudulent Franny.
Fraudulent Franny.
I would say Kaz. Like, Kaz, justice for Kaz.
Justice for Kaz. Kaz was obviously the main character.
Yeah.
But I felt like she had the most character development. And again, we're going to circle back to that. But I really like Daniel. Even though he betrayed us, I really liked him.
Me. Olivia Rodrigo should be the soundtrack of this book. I liked Daniel a lot too. I thought he was really sweet. I thought him and Kaz might even have like a romance. And then,
No, I
like,
thought we were gonna get a little hookup scene for a
me
second.
too. And then like Pete would have to watch it, you know, from home live stream. Like that would have been fucking crazy.
That would have been crazy.
So,
but
yeah,
it never happened.
No, and like Daniel was, I liked him a lot while reading him, and I was
did.
distraught when I thought he'd. But I did kind of think that maybe he wasn't actually dead because we didn't see him die completely. So I thought maybe like the producers of the show came and snatched him up. But I could have never thought that he was a paid actor.
No, that was a twist for me. How do the relationships among the characters drive the plot?
Ooh, that's good. Because, well, we kind of mentioned Kaz and Franny. Their
Yep.
relationship developed a lot. I think that was one of the most shocking twists for me because with Kaz and Franny, because I grew to really love them as a duo. I felt like they like stuck together. I thought it was sweet that Franny kind of leaned on her. She would like put her head on Kaz, and Kaz would tell her, "Sweetie, it's gonna be okay." Well,
Yeah, that
then-
motherly figure.
the motherly figure. And then when it comes time for Franny's challenge, I was shook when she said, "I nominate Kaz."
That was some ho shit. Now we know it was scripted, I'm sure, but that was some fake ass shit.
It really was. I think I texted you and I was like, fucking fake ass Franny.
She's got a lot of nicknames.
Yeah, she's got some nerve, bitch. You got to do your time.
do
It's
it.
okay. You can hate me, like, but I can't do this. And like, well, I actually, now that I know it's scripted, it, like, bothers me less. But like, what the fuck? That was a huge twist for me.
That
honestly.
was.
And I think that their relationship, their character relationship, made that such a shocking twist, which is what
Exactly.
great job for the author.
Yeah, because I think like the whole idea, like trust plays such a big component in this, right?
Yes.
So like there was so much trust put on Daniel because like Daniel was the one that was like going out and collecting the water and the buckets, so they had the water to drink and starting the fires. Like there was just so much trust placed on everyone that I think by the end of the book, like Kaz and Smith even started to trust each other to like,
I actually-
jump off the boat at
Yes.
the end. So that was just like my biggest thing is like their trust in
In
each
each
other.
other. And how you kind of have no choice but to trust these people that
Forced
you're with.
trust, yeah.
Forced trust, exactly. And it turns out that it was betrayal by Daniel and Franny. But I gotta say, by the end of it, I felt like Kaz and Smith had a special bond and sweet
did.
relationship. It kind of softened Smith in a way, like to see him vulnerable and telling Kaz, like, I'm scared to jump off the ship with you, but I'm going to do it because I trust you.
Yeah.
It seemed like they were like, look, it's just me and you. And I thought that was sweet. And it was actually really fucking sad when she's like, wow, I literally let him down. Like, he jumped off the ship because he trusts me. And he's gone.
And he's gone. And he
like-
literally never came up.
No, so how did he get? Because he ends up being alive, so that's a plot hole for me, or maybe we missed it, so someone let us know if we did. But how did they rescue him and get it in a way that Kaz didn't
That
see?
fast.
Right, because she assumed he's dead, but she gets on the ship and he's there. Plot holes,
Plot hole. The book had 4 main challenges.
yes.
Smith completes the mine challenge. Kaz has the water challenge where she has to jump in the ocean and make it back on board the ship with the help of the other participants. Daniel has the body challenge where he must climb up the side of the ship, zip line into the pool, obtain a key. However, as Colby was saying in the summary, things take a turn for the worse because the pool cover starts to close, which doubles as the dance floor. So it's like this hard cover. It's
Yeah.
not like, a pool cover you throw over your pool.
So scary.
And then the other participants are forced to watch, and it basically pops up on the screen that you have to have VIP access to continue watching.
Oh, wait, that's such an important part to mention.
Yes. And so
That
they don't
made
know
me-
what happens.
That made me be like, what the fuck kind of TV show is this? When it was like, if you want to see this person die, VIP access.
Right. Which, like, we learned in the book, people pay for, which is just beyond
Yeah.
where my mind can go.
Yeah.
And then finally, Franny has the air challenge where she has to climb the mast post and get a key. However, she then turns around, and as you know, we feel strongly about this. She nominates Kaz, and ultimately, Kaz does complete that challenge. Which challenge did you find the most scary? And then which one, if you had to complete one, which one would you do, but you can't say mind? Because obviously we would do the mind challenge.
Clearly, yeah.
Clearly we would do the mind challenge.
I still don't get the mind challenge, by the way. I was like, what is this
'cause-
puzzle? Like, I don't
yeah.
understand it. I would obviously hope for that one, but I
Can't
thought
do
about
it.
this a lot while reading it. Which one would I want to do? I really think I could. I think I would do the water.
That's what I said too.
Really?
Yes.
Okay, I thought you might say air.
I'm terrified of heights.
Me
I don't know if
too.
people know this about me.
No, I didn't really know that. Okay, maybe I'm not terrified. I've not really been in situations where I've had to be at high heights, but I do get very like butterfly jittery feelings when I'm in any situation.
Sweaty palms.
Sweaty palms when
Me
I'm
too.
climbing upstairs, when I'm on balconies at
Yes.
hotels. Looking over just makes me feel very nauseous, scared. I think the worst. I literally picture myself falling, splattering, dying.
Yeah, I couldn't have done the air challenge. You know when it really hit me? Blue Bayou. When you
Yes.
climb up the open, like you can see through the steps to get to the top of water slides.
Yes.
That's when I was like, I am very scared of heights. I don't like this at all.
I think I feel the same way.
Yeah.
And I was the most nervous reading Kaz do that challenge. I think water because I'm a decent swimmer. I do think I would be able to like survive at sea. Of course, like obviously you can't help the natural elements and like the fucking sharks and jellyfish and shit that could come
That's
and eat
true.
you. I thought about that a lot too because I'm like, they're literally in the middle of the ocean, like whales, terrifying things. But as far as like swimming and enduring the ocean, I think I'd probably be the best at. Like breath control, laying on my back. Like that's where I think I would thrive the most. So I would go with water.
That's where I was too. Air was the scariest for me.
Hell no.
Hell no.
No.
And then I'm definitely, obviously, not going to climb the side of the ship and zip line into the pool.
Fuck no.
No.
That was I honestly made my heart race reading Daniel's challenge where it's slowly closing over him.
And then, like, he was turning his head and he just had that little bit of pocket of air.
And then boom, screen goes
Done.
blank. If you want to see this, you need a Prime subscription.
But you know what's crazy is that kind of like plays back into, I was reading this somewhere, it might have been on Reddit, but that plays into our history. Like in Rome, in the Colosseum, people would literally go and watch like lions maul.
I think
people.
that was in the book.
Was that in the
I
book?
think they talked about that in the book. Like I think maybe Smith or Franny had said that.
Okay, I was like, did I read this on Reddit? But I think it's, okay, you're right. It was
Yeah.
in the book, and then I went to Reddit to like deep dive into
And
this.
it's true.
And it's true, like throughout history. Mm-hmm. Like
They've
it's just,
always had the dark web. It's just been in different ways.
right, like you would just go to a stadium to watch it.
Yeah. No, you're right. And then I'm sure
It's the modern day Colosseum is the dark web.
the Roman Colosseum. And like honestly paying for higher subscriptions. Like I'm sure way back in fucking 1715, if you were rich, you got to go to these crazy parties where they would just like watch, they would just kill people and you could watch. The more money, the more you see.
That's absolutely sick.
That's absolutely
Like
sick.
when you think back, it's like, what the hell?
And this like
It was like the wealthy people too.
seriously, well it's always
Yeah,
the
that's true.
wealthies.
That is
it's always
true.
the elites.
The elites.
But this, when I was reading this, I was like, I could totally see this be something that happens in real life. Bitch, crazier things happen on the dark
This-
web than this.
I would love the director, producers, anyone that's involved with Black Mirror, because that's something that you referenced a lot, to make this into an episode or a movie,
It could be like a Black Mirror, movie.
special.
Yes.
You heard it here first.
Yo, people need to listen to us because we
We
have some great ideas.
Our ideas are insane.
And that is like, this would make the best Black Mirror special. The best.
yes. So this is where we can jump into Kaz's past, that realm of the book. What did you feel like motivated Kaz's actions throughout the book?
Well, she referenced a lot the guilt of her past.
Yeah.
Which I felt for her a lot. And I also felt like when I realized how old she was, I was a little taken aback by how much the past still haunted her. Because, you know, at some point you would hope that at some point in your life, you kind of make amends, you make peace with things that happened in your childhood or your past that still haunt you. But she was still clearly very shaken and affected by her past. I understand being affected the rest of your life by giving your child up for adoption, for sure. But the stuff with her dad was interesting to me because a lot of that was out of her control, not her fault. And even at the age of between 50 and 60, she still struggled with that. She still resented her father for putting her through the things he put her through. I think it seems like her father caused her family a lot of dismay with his gambling addiction and his deceitful ways. I think he hurt lots of other people, which in turn hurt the family. And it just really like goes to show, this is something we talk about a lot in books because it's like a common theme, but it's just clearly something true about life, is how much your childhood can affect you like forever.
Even like subconsciously.
I think she just felt unimportant in her life because of her father. I think her father prioritized his gambling addiction over her when it was most important. He would steal money from her, But something that really stuck with me that I think a lot of people can relate to is she still loved him. And that's tough. And I think a lot of times if you don't have that type of parent, it's really hard to understand. It's very hard to grapple with.
Yes. And as someone, I will speak to that because that's the only experience I can share.
Yeah.
You know, is that is very true. It is hard, even when you read it and you can feel for a character in a book, or like you have friends that it is hard to put yourself in their shoes. You can't. You really can't.
Because you had a whole different life experience. Amanda, our friend, and I were just talking about this because she is the same as you. Cannot relate one bit to having a parent that way. It's easy for you to say, like, forget that person. Forget your parent. They're not a good parent. You shouldn't feel this way. But I think Kaz was a really good example of that. I saw someone say that, like, they were bored of reading about Kaz's past. But I thought it was...
Interesting.
I know, but I thought it was really important to the story.
It was.
I think
in my opinion, too.
Yeah, and I think it was a really good representation of having a parent who you still love, even though you know that things that they have done has greatly affected you your whole life going forward. But it's that instinct as a child that you always kind of like go back to that little kid that you once were when you had the parent, and you still love your parent up until she literally was, in her mind, about to die. Like, she thought she was on death's bed when she was in the water, and she's like, I could just close my eyes right now and go back to sleep. She thought about her father.
Yep. That is who she was thinking about. I think it's too because that, like you were saying, that little girl, or they always live inside of us.
Exactly.
You know? So, like, I think it never does truly go away.
It really doesn't.
No matter how you deal with it. And
it's kind of crazy to think about, because I think about, like, older women in my life. Like, they were just little girls once. And they're still in there.
They're still there.
Yeah, and I felt for Kaz because I was thinking about, wow, she's like an older woman, and she's reverting back to, like, her inner child right before she dies. Like, it's just, you're always there. By the end, it seemed like she had kind of found a little bit of peace with her past. And then, you know, I guess we'll talk about the end of the book, but then it's like she's just thrown right back into the trauma.
Well, I agree with every single word that you said for her. I do think that she was intensely motivated by her past.
Yeah.
I think the love for her sister, because her sister was addicted to drugs.
Yeah, and that was, like, not talked about too much.
No, but she would, like, go back to it. Like, her sister, you know, like, laying lifeless on the floor.
Yeah.
And I think that spoke to me just because...
Gemma. That was the sister's name. I love that name.
Just because, you know, there are things in books that, you know, are, like you were saying, relatable to life. Again, the betrayal she felt from her father, her mom being sick. Like, she really had all of the things that I guess are really common, unfortunately, in everyone's lives. I think that was fuel for her.
Yeah.
And I think, like, because she kept referring to the ship before she knew it was a show as, like, the game. And she would constantly say, like, I'm taking a gamble. And I think that's when she would, like, flash back to thinking about her dad. So I just...
She referenced that a lot. Like, like taking a gamble, taking a risk.
And taking another gamble.
And she would be like, I cannot kind of understand him a little more now.
Yeah.
Wow, I never really made that connection. You're right.
Yeah. And at one point, she, like, couldn't even walk past the casino. I think that was, like, the first chapter. Because I think Pete wanted to gamble. I think he wanted to go to the casino, and she couldn't go. She couldn't make herself go.
Yeah, she was a really dynamic character, and she was also just, like, an average person, which I appreciated, because that's most people. Like, most average people have those different types of past.
I love that you said she was an average character.
Yeah.
I also loved her age range. Like, I love that none of the characters were, like, described as, like, beautiful, eloquent, like, fabulously dressed. Like, they were just normal people.
I think so too.
On this boat.
I think it would have taken away if, like, one person happened to be a famous person, one person came from this very extreme background. I think it really, really helped you connect with the people, because they were literally just average passengers trying to go on a cruise ship.
Yeah, I think Smith was the only one that ever was like, I spent money to be a diamond class member. I get this. I should be able to eat before y'all. He had a moment.
That was wild. That was
wild.
wild.
A moment where I was like, well, that's not true. The whole book, except for the end. He did redeem himself.
He had a little redemption arc at the end.
A little redemption. But he was the only one that was kind of threw money
That was
around.
Wild when he was like, some of us paid more for our tickets. We deserve to eat first. Like, sir,
Are you crazy?
We literally just ate dog food in the form of meatballs. Give me the fucking
Speaking of, would you have eaten the dog balls?
the dog balls. Dude, that
the dog food
grossed
meatballs.
me out so much. But honestly, when you're that hungry,
I would have eaten them.
yeah, like for sure, when you're that hungry, yeah. Like, well, I thought they were gonna eat the dogs at one point.
Same.
What was up with the dogs, by the way?
I don't know. I guess they were there literally to just like when they released the rats, were they there to just like maintain that?
Yeah, you're
What
right.
was their point?
What was the point?
So many times throughout the book, because they would tie it back to the dogs every couple chapters. I'm like, do not eat these dogs.
Yeah, I might have had to draw the line there.
And then when they were saying that the viewers were like writing in to start scripting the challenges and scripting them to do stuff, I'm like, do not have them eat the dogs
Yeah,
for anything. Please, no.
I was worried about animal cruelty happening for sure.
I was like, people paying to watch people die?
for sure.
Okay.
Dogs?
Eating the dogs? Stop.
Serious boundary has to be drawn.
Okay, so now that we're like in a little goofy mood,
Yeah.
which character would you want to have on for an exclusive interview with the Open Books podcast?
Ooh, this is tough.
It is tough.
All right, I'm gonna choose wisely.
I want to see if we pick the same person.
Okay. I'm gonna go with Franny.
Okay.
And this is why. I want to ask Franny, do you feel guilty about what you did to Kaz? Do you feel guilty for making this woman love you, thinking you committed suicide? I also want to know, like, how'd you get on the show? What type of actress is she?
What your check looks like?
Right.
Because
How much did she get paid? That would be really, really interesting. I would like to know how she was recruited for the show.
Yep.
Is this her first gig? I would like to know the ins and outs. Was she actually starving? Was she secretly getting some food on the side?
we have questions.
I think I stand by my choice. Who would you
it's
go
a
with?
really good choice. I actually said Michelle.
Michelle
'Cause,
Lips.
like, bitch, who put you up to the lying part? Like when you, I mean, obviously she was also hired on, but when you came out and were face to face with these people, and they was smelling your hot breath underneath that blanket because Kaz mentioned it more than once that it was getting steamy under there.
She really did. She was like, "We're so close." Everyone's breath, and that's all I thought about. I'd have been like,
She basically,
"Girl, you
said
need a mitt."
when they came up from underneath the blanket, their hair was frizzy and shit. That's
Hot ass breath, girl. If you go brush
That's
your
why
fucking
they
teeth.
call you lips, bitch.
If you don't get that nasty ass breath out my face.
Like, why are you so good at what you do?
No, for sure. I smelt not only her breath, but her fraudulence from a mile away. When I
did.
texted
You
you,
were
I was
like-
like, I don't trust her.
You were like, she's sus. I'm like, she really is, but I'm eating this part of the book up.
No, eating it up. So clearly, like, everything she said was for the show, right? Like,
Yes.
she was an actress. When she came on, she was like, I don't know what's going on. Yes, you do.
Yes, you do.
And why are you out here all of a sudden? Where's the food?
And she was like all dressed up.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like she's been under in this bunker. Like, bring some food for the fucking passengers.
Yeah,
we know
she
you
was
got
like
extra.
She was like underwater. Like her room was under all the
Sure,
decks.
Jan.
Okay,
Yeah.
sure, Jan. So, if this book were turned into a musical, because I had to go there because we were talking about Hairspray. If this book were turned into a musical, which character would have the best solo number, and what would it be about?
Smith would have like off the wall outrageous solo number. Like, he would just be living lavish, eating everyone's like caviar.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so maybe I went a little dark here, but I said Kaz, and it would be casino themed.
Oh my God, she's in the casino, like she's got dark clouds over her everywhere.
Yeah. Verse 1 would like be about the gambling, but like taking her life back as an adult, like
Yes.
releasing herself.
Yes, yeah. She would go in the ship's medical center, find her mom in there.
Right, and I was seeing her like with a cane and just like doing a little like
Little number.
grapevine
Yeah.
with her feet.
That's hilarious.
That was funny.
We should do that for all the books. That's really funny.
Isn't it so funny?
Yeah.
Okay, that ending though. We did.
Okay.
Let's circle back.
Okay.
Now we're gonna get serious again. If we're literally the most unserious people, what is the significance of the ending, and did it provide any closure for you?
No closure at all.
Zero. Zilch.
This might be the only thing I disliked about the book. I didn't hate the ending. I just wish that I knew for sure there was a second book coming because I have a lot of questions. I actually have a couple Reddit theories to read to you because I looked some up because I genuinely couldn't think of a theory besides Kaz is yet again going to be the subject of the reality show. But my question is, okay, if she gets on this airplane, she only probably took 5 minutes in the bathroom. Did it take that quick for everyone to run out of the airplane?
I know, and they were already in the air, so how?
How? Wait, so they were already in the air? I think
I'm pretty sure they were already in the air.
I'm pretty sure they were. So I don't know what the ending was supposed to mean. I would have been satisfied with it just ending and like, or maybe like finding out that Pete actually wasn't on it and like he's just here for the money and he wanted Kaz to win the money. Like that would have been a big enough twist for me that like you find out that Pete is fraudulent, but whatever, she's just gonna go live with him and she doesn't know. But to have it just end where she walks out on the airplane and she's alone again,
It was kind of annoying.
It was annoying. Like I want to know why, and it's just like, okay, so now we're just reading torture because this poor lady has been tortured with no reward.
Right. Well, I was kind of worried. The only thing that I kind of like landed on, aside from it being like she's in this never-ending loop of, okay, again, like what does that mean? Was she just, I don't want to say making it up, but was this like an psychosis from her previous experience? Was this PTSD where people still actually on the plane and she was just imagining no one was on the plane?
I can accept that, and that was a theory I read.
Okay. That's the only one that I could land on.
Okay, I'll pull up the theory.
Perfect. While you're doing that, how many stars would you give this book? And that kind of ties up our DBQs.
I might go with 5.
I gave it a solid ass 5.
Okay. Yeah.
We haven't given a book a solid 5 since, drum roll please,
The Troop. Yeah, I totally agree. This deserves that. This was so well written to me. I saw some people say that they didn't like the writing. I
saw that too.
I thought it was great. This book. I thought it was wonderful. I think okay, here's a Reddit theory real quick
I'm
about
excited
the
to hear
end
this.
that I like, and it goes with what you just thought, and I think that's what I'm going to land on until we know.
Okay.
Until the author comes out and says there's a sequel, I think this is where we should end it. So this is on Reddit. I just put in Reddit the last one book. Someone wrote this 7 months ago, Muska fan, that's what their username is. So it says, I imagine as a reader, you can interpret the ending a number of ways. Hallucination due to the trauma, and that you could have started, hallucination due to the trauma, and that could have started at any time, maybe even a dream, in the water, in the hotel at the end, etc. The concept of making everyone get off the ship is plausible, but not making everyone disappear while in an airplane restroom. To me, a hallucination or a dream is where I'm leaning towards the end. However, I'm leaning more towards a dream. The things at the end, like the neighbor in the photo with no identification of who it is. What is that? I don't remember that. Neighbor in the photo with no identification of who it is.
Is that when she was at the hotel?
And she was like looking at pictures?
I think.
Yeah, I kind of missed that. That went over my head. I might have to go back.
Yeah.
Pete just showing up at her hotel room. Where was he before that? I don't trust Pete all the way, by the way.
No, I know now that you're saying that. Maybe
I don't really
either.
necessarily believe his story that he tried to help her. The randomness of the sequences at the end make me lean towards a dream, kind of like the way we feel when we have our own dreams. Like, what made me dream that? Your brain can make up a bunch of nonsense. So there's many questions at the end. Overall, I loved it. So I think kind of what this person is saying, like at any point towards the end, she might have been hallucinating or dreaming due to trauma. Maybe while she was in the water, maybe at the hotel, maybe Pete never did come. But I think I want to land on it was just trauma. She walks out for a second. She's like, there's no one on the plane. And then she like comes back out of it.
Yeah, I think that's where I'm going to go too because I need some kind of resolution.
Yeah, I agree.
I do have a 5-star, a 3-star, and a 1-star rating for you just to kind of see if you agree or disagree with any of them.
Okay, perfect.
So the 5-star, right now I'm seeing stars of fireworks. Seriously, y'all, yes, I'm a Texan. I feel like a nuclear bomb exploded from the beginning and somehow I survived the carnage. This book is that powerful. Will Dean held me captive for 2 whole days as nothing else mattered except for work and food. It is that powerful. She goes on to say, I felt so many emotions while reading this: excited, hopeful, fury, rage, disbelief, empathy, relief, and many more. At first, I didn't know how to feel about it with the first major reveal. I was very confused for sure. As I trudged on, I knew I had to finish this book. This was my first Will Dean novel, and it will not be my last. Bravo, Dean. Well done. 5 stars.
Yeah, I agree. I literally was like, my life was listening to this book. I had it on audiobook when I was cleaning. It was like anytime I got a free chance, I was like so excited. I was like, oh yeah, I get to pick up the book and see what happens next.
Yeah, it was definitely one that I felt the same way. Like I when a book has me like, I need to know what's happening in the next chapter, it's going to get higher stars.
Hold you captive. Like she said, I really like that interpretation. The book
Yeah.
held her captive. I felt the same way.
So 3 stars. What I liked. I
Okay.
like the way this person did this. Short chapters. I will take a step back and say I also enjoyed the short chapters. They
You
were
mentioned
very
that when
concise.
we texted.
Yes.
I love that. And they always and the last sentence was always like, boom,
Yes.
we ready for something more.
Absolutely. I did love that.
Yeah.
Cliffhangers after the end of each chapter. Or survival thriller. What I didn't like. Kaz's inner monologue. I thought this was so interesting because I enjoyed that.
I did too.
Sweetie, you are lost out in sea. I understand you would want to reminisce about your sister, gambling father, and poor mother. But girl, it was too damn repetitive and it was taking away the suspense and claustrophobic vibes. I disagree.
For me, it was like a break from the claustrophobic vibes.
Yeah, it helped us understand her.
Yeah,
But-
I agree.
Look, to each their own.
For sure.
Why was this book 482 pages? A thriller just can't thrill for that long, and if it does, that author has one hell of a talent. The pacing after Kaz finds out what is going on was so long-winded and a bit boring. I struggled to stay awake and became quite disinterested at times. When I found out the reveal of the plot, I was so excited because it had a lot of potential, but it just didn't hit for me. It was mid.
Okay.
The ending had me rolling my eyes right to the back of my sockets, and the final line in the book potentially could have had me slapping a stranger had I been reading this in public. It was ridiculous.
That's hilarious. Like, I did feel the same way about the end at some points. I was like, really?
Yeah, I love the way this Goodreads account put all their thoughts. 1 star. Here we go. I was initially so excited to read this as I love Will Dean's books, which I've never read any of his books before.
I'm interested to read more, though.
Same. And the premise sounded so intriguing. So why the 1 star, you may ask? Because I feel let down. I initially put 2 stars, but by the end of the review, I downgraded it. I think I was expecting Kaz to be alone, trying to survive. Okay, that's where I started.
Yeah.
Trying to survive and solve what happened. That wasn't the case, and it very quickly segues into something else. I worked out early on what was probably happening, though not the sheer scale of it. It dragged on too long, too much repetition of Kaz's backstory, and as for the last chapter, seriously, if this had been a new-to-me author, I would have given up. Certainly been far blunter and maybe a 1-star review. I don't really get what she's saying there. I guess harsher if it was someone she's never read before.
Yeah.
So that was the little, 135 segment. So for our next on the shelf, Colby and I are going to do something different and a little fun. So just stay tuned. We don't have that quite picked out yet,
But you'll hear it soon.
but you'll hear from us soon.
Yeah, so follow along on our Instagram to see the next on the shelf. Keep up with us, send your thoughts. This one was really fun to talk to people about. And yeah, just don't forget to leave us a rate and review. Stop what you're doing. Go to the Apple Podcast app, leave a written review, and then Spotify, just click 5 stars. It's very simple. It means a lot.
Thank y'all for listening.
Thank y'all. Love y'all. Bye.
Bye.